Welcome to Detective Stories by Asma. Today, we explore a modern psychological thriller that will keep you on the edge of your seat, The It Girl by Ruth Ware. A tale of secrets, deception, and a murder mystery that refuses to stay buried. Get ready for an hour-long deep dive into one of the most gripping stories of our time. Oxford University, a place where history, prestige, and excellence collide. It's a world where the brightest minds gather, friendships are forged, and destinies are shaped. Among those stepping into this grand institution is Hannah Jones, an ordinary girl from a modest background, thrilled yet intimidated by the privilege surrounding her. This is where her journey begins, a journey that will change her life forever. But in this new world of elite students, Hannah is an outsider until she meets April Clarke-Cliveden. April is the embodiment of everything Hannah is not: rich, confident, effortlessly glamorous, and completely magnetic. She draws people in, commanding attention wherever she goes. April doesn't just have friends, she has followers. She is the sun around which everyone orbits. And for reasons Hannah can't fully understand, April chooses her as her closest companion. Soon, Hannah finds herself part of an elite circle: April, Will, Hugh, Ryan, and Emily. Each of them brings their own unique personality to the group. Will, the charming and ambitious one. Hugh, the serious and reserved future doctor. Ryan, the athletic and fun-loving friend. And Emily, the sharp, observant, and fiercely independent woman. Together, they form a seemingly unbreakable bond. They attend exclusive parties, share laughter, and bask in the magic of youth. They believe their friendships are eternal, but no one sees the cracks forming beneath the surface. Despite the glittering social life, Hannah can't shake the feeling that April's world is more complicated than it seems. She starts noticing subtle power struggles, the way April manipulates those around her with effortless ease. April's pranks, at first playful, become more pointed, more calculated. Sometimes they seem harmless, a misplaced item, a little trick played on an unsuspecting friend. But other times, they feel cruel. A whispered rumor, a joke at someone else's expense. And yet, no one dares to challenge her, because to be in April's favor is to be untouchable. But what happens when the game goes too far? What happens when the lines between fun and malice blur? Hannah begins to question her own role in this world. She adores April, but she also fears her. She wonders what happens to those who fall out of April's grace. And then, one day, she starts to find out. April Clarke-Cliveden loved attention, and she knew exactly how to get it. Her pranks were legendary, sometimes hilarious, sometimes humiliating. A misplaced diary, a switched phone, an innocent secret suddenly public. Most of the time, it was all in good fun, but sometimes it crossed a line. April had an undeniable charm. Even when she was cruel, people couldn't help but admire her. Hannah watched in awe and in discomfort as April toyed with people. One time, she convinced a classmate that she had failed an important assignment just to see her reaction. Another time, she locked a friend out of their own dorm in the middle of the night. To some, it was harmless mischief. But to others, it felt like something more sinister: control. April always seemed to know how to push people just to their limits, but never beyond. Or so Hannah thought. The atmosphere in their circle started to shift. It was subtle at first: nervous laughter at April's jokes, sideways glances when she spoke. But Hannah noticed. She noticed how Will's jaw clenched when April teased him, how Hugh, always the rational one, grew quieter when she was around. Even Ryan, the easygoing athlete, sometimes looked uneasy. One of April's favorite targets was Emily. Emily was sharp, independent, and outspoken, but even she wasn't immune to April's games. One night, at a small gathering, April decided to reveal one of Emily's secrets in front of the group, a past relationship she had kept private. The air turned thick with tension. Emily's face went pale, her lips pressed together in a tight line. The room fell silent for a moment before April burst into laughter. "Oh, come on, it's just a joke." But it wasn't, and everyone knew it. Hannah, watching from the sidelines, started to wonder, was this really just harmless fun? Or was there something darker at play? she wasn't the only one asking that question. Then came the biggest prank of all. One evening, April orchestrated an elaborate setup. She manipulated messages, staged conversations, and tricked Will into believing that Hugh had betrayed him. It was meant to be funny, a joke among friends. But the laughter quickly died when Will's face darkened with anger. The tension in the room became unbearable. For the first time, Hannah saw real cracks forming in their friendship. She saw the way Will clenched his fists, how Ryan avoided eye contact, and how Emily's usual sharp wit turned cold. It was a game to April, but to everyone else, it was something more. That night, Emily confronted April. "You don't care about anyone but yourself, do you?" Her voice was low but steady. April just smirked. "Oh, please. You all love the drama, don't pretend otherwise." But the look in Emily's eyes said otherwise. Something had changed. Something had shifted. Hannah went to bed that night with a heavy feeling in her chest. For the first time, she wondered if being in April's orbit was truly worth it. She thought about Will's clenched fists, Ryan's silence, Emily's burning gaze. And she thought about April's laughter, sharp, unbothered, triumphant. What Hannah didn't know was that this moment, this night, was the beginning of the end. The end of their friendship. The end of their youthful innocence. And ultimately, the end of April Clarke-Cliveden. Because one of the people in that room, was already thinking about murder. Oxford, once a place of laughter and privilege, had turned into something else entirely. The night was silent. The walls of Pelham College held secrets, whispers in the dark, unseen glances exchanged in dimly lit corridors. And then, it happened. It was supposed to be a normal evening. Hannah returned to their dorm after a night out, exhausted but content. April had been alive, vibrant as ever when she left. But by morning, everything had changed. April was found dead, strangled in her own room. The police arrived swiftly. The university was thrown into chaos. Students whispered in hushed tones, and the once lively college halls now carried an air of tension and fear. The shining, dazzling April Clarke-Cliveden was gone, and someone had killed her. The investigation began immediately. Officers questioned everyone, searching for clues. Hannah found herself repeating the same words over and over. "I saw John Neville. He was near the staircase that night." John Neville, the porter, gruff, quiet, and easy suspect. He had always seemed strange, distant, and the moment Hannah mentioned his name, the case took a sharp turn. John Neville was arrested. His past was examined, rumors of inappropriate behavior, complaints from students, a history that made him look guilty. The trial was swift, the evidence stacked against him. And Hannah? Her testimony helped seal his fate. She was sure she had seen him. She had no doubt, until years later when everything she believed would come crashing down. But that night, there was no doubt. The college grieved, and then it moved on. Hannah tried to as well. But in the back of her mind, one question remained. Had April seen it coming? Had she known that one of her games, one of her manipulations, would lead to her own death? Had she, in those final moments, realized that someone in her circle had finally had enough? Because the truth was, April Clarke-Cliveden had spent years playing with fire. And that night, someone made sure she got burned. Years passed, and Hannah thought she had left it all behind. A new life. A new city, a fresh start. But the past has a way of creeping back in. And for Hannah, it started with a phone call. The voice on the other end was hesitant, but clear. John Neville died in prison. And there are new details about the case. A chill ran down Hannah's spine. She had been so certain back then. Certain of what she saw. Certain of what she said in court. But now, doubt began to creep in. Had she been wrong? Had she sent an innocent man to prison? Memories came flooding back. The night of the murder, the whispered conversations. The glances exchanged between friends. What if John Neville hadn't been the one lurking near the staircase that night? What if it had been someone else? Someone she knew? Hannah tried to ignore it, tried to move on, but she couldn't. Not anymore. And so, she decided to do something she had sworn she never would. Go back to Oxford. To dig into the past, to uncover the truth. Returning to Pelham College felt like stepping into a ghost story. The air was thick with old memories. The walls seemed to whisper with echoes of laughter, of secrets, of the life she had tried so hard to forget. The campus had changed, new students, new faculty, but some things remained the same. And the past was waiting for her. She started where it all began, April's room. Standing in the very place where her friend had been murdered, Hannah felt a shiver run down her spine. How many times had she walked past this door? How many times had she ignored the small voice in her head that told her something didn't add up? Determined, she began reaching out to old friends. Will was distant, his words careful, measured. Ryan was hesitant, reluctant to talk. Emily was the most guarded of them all. "What are you doing, Hannah?" "It's over. Let it go." But Hannah couldn't. And the more she pushed, the more she realized that everyone had something to hide. She met with a retired detective who had worked on the case. He revealed something chilling. New evidence had surfaced. A detail overlooked in the initial investigation. A timeline discrepancy. A missing piece. And suddenly, the case against John Neville didn't seem as airtight as it once had. Hannah began to retrace their steps from that night. The party, the arguments, the final moments before April was found dead. Slowly, connections started forming. Had April discovered something that night? Had she confronted someone? Was it possible that the killer had been right in front of them all along? The deeper she dug, the more dangerous things became. Strange messages. Anonymous notes warning her to stop. And then, someone broke into her flat. A warning? A threat? It was clear now, someone didn't want her finding the truth. But Hannah was no longer the scared, naive girl from years ago. She had to know. She had to uncover the real story. And this time, she wouldn't stop until she did. Because the real murderer was still out there, and they were watching her. Unraveling the truth. Hannah's mind was a battlefield of memories and doubts. She had always believed she had seen John Neville that night. But now, as she pieced together new evidence, the cracks in her certainty widened. Who else could have been there? Who had the most to lose if the truth came out? She started with Will. He had always been April's closest confidant, but there had been tension in their relationship. She met him at a quiet cafe, his eyes scanning the room as if he expected someone to be listening. "It's been years, Hannah." "Why now?" he asked. Hannah hesitated before replying. "Because I think we were wrong. I think John Neville was innocent." Will's face darkened. "Let it go. It's in the past." But Hannah couldn't ignore the way his hands tightened around his coffee cup. Was it guilt? Fear? Or something else entirely? Next was Ryan, always the easygoing one. The one who never seemed to care too much. But when Hannah asked him about that night, his entire demeanor changed. He grew defensive, shifting in his seat. "I don't remember much," he muttered. It was a long time ago, but Hannah wasn't convinced. She pressed him, and for the first time, she saw a flicker of something in his expression. Regret? Anxiety? Whatever it was, he was hiding something. Then there was Emily. Sharp, calculating Emily. When Hannah found her, she was just as poised as ever. "Still chasing ghosts?" Emily asked, her lips curving into a half smile. But there was something cold behind her eyes. Hannah pushed, mentioning the timeline discrepancy. The new evidence. The inconsistencies in their stories. Emily sighed, tapping her fingers on the table. "You always did like playing detective, Hannah. But you might not like the answers you find." As Hannah dug deeper, she uncovered something startling. April had been in possession of information that could ruin someone's future. A betrayal. A lie. A truth someone would kill to keep buried. The pieces were coming together. And then it happened. Another break-in. This time, it wasn't just a warning. Her notes were scattered, her laptop missing. Someone was watching her. Someone wanted her to stop. Determined, Hannah retraced the events of that night one more time. She followed every detail, every step. And finally, she saw it. The missing piece. The one thing that had been overlooked. The real murderer wasn't a stranger. It wasn't John Neville. It was someone she had trusted, someone who had been right in front of her all along. And now they knew she was close to the truth. The question was, what were they willing to do to stop her? Hannah stood at the edge of the cliff, staring out over the city below. The realization that she was closer to the truth, but also closer to danger, was overwhelming. Every instinct told her to stop, to turn back, but she couldn't. Not now. She had come too far. She had a choice to make: go public with what she knew or confront the person responsible. She had all the pieces of the puzzle, but now she needed to figure out who had the motive to kill April. She thought of all the suspects, the people she had once called friends, and realized the truth. It wasn't just one person. It was all of them. Together, they had created the perfect storm. The danger she felt wasn't just because someone wanted to stop her from discovering the truth. It was because they were terrified of what would happen if she succeeded. The lies, the secrets, they would all come crashing down. If she exposed the truth, their lives would never be the same again. And that was a risk no one was willing to take. Hannah needed a plan. She couldn't just charge in without thinking. She had to be strategic. She reached out to a journalist she trusted, someone who could help her get the truth out if it came to that. But the more she thought about it, the more she realized that even the journalist couldn't be trusted completely. Everyone had their own agendas. She was alone in this. As she pieced together her plan, her phone rang. It was Will. He wanted to meet. Hannah's heart raced. She hadn't heard from him in weeks. She agreed to meet him at the same cafe, the one where they had spoken so many years ago. When she arrived, he was already there, sitting in the corner, his face pale and drawn. He didn't look like the Will she remembered. This man was nervous, on edge. "What is it, Will?" Hannah asked, trying to keep her voice steady. He looked around as if to make sure no one was listening. "I think you're getting too close, Hannah," he said, his voice low. "I don't know what you've uncovered, but you need to stop. This isn't just about April anymore. There's more at stake." "What do you mean?" Hannah pressed, but Will just shook his head. "I can't tell you. You're in danger. You don't understand the consequences of what you're doing." Hannah stared at him, her mind racing. Was he trying to protect her, or was he just trying to keep her from the truth? She couldn't tell anymore, but there was one thing she knew for certain: she couldn't stop. She had to keep going. Will's next words hit her like a slap. "I'm sorry," he said. "I should have said something sooner. But I couldn't. I was part of it all. I knew more than I let on. But I couldn't come forward. It would have destroyed everything." Hannah was speechless. Will, the person she had trusted, had been involved in the conspiracy all along. He was one of them. He had lied to her. And now he was admitting it. But the worst part was that he was still trying to protect himself. Still trying to cover his tracks. "You're still hiding something," she said, her voice trembling with anger. "What else don't you want me to know?" Will took a deep breath. "I'm telling you everything I can, Hannah. But you need to stop. You don't know who you're dealing with. If you go any further, you'll be putting yourself in more danger than you can imagine. I can't protect you." "Then don't," Hannah said, standing up. "I'm going to find the truth, Will, whether you help me or not." And with that, she walked away from him, feeling the weight of the decision she had just made. The weight of knowing that she couldn't trust anyone, but also the weight of knowing that there was no turning back now. As she walked through the streets, the city felt different. It was darker now. The danger was real. The shadows seemed to stretch longer, reaching for her as if the city itself was conspiring against her. But she couldn't stop. She had to finish what she had started. And that's when the first threat came. A shadow in the alleyway. A cold, dark figure who emerged from the darkness. A voice, low and menacing, whispered, "Stop, or else." Hannah froze, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew it wasn't a coincidence. Someone was watching her. Someone who would stop at nothing to make sure she didn't uncover the truth. And now it was clear. Whoever had killed April wasn't done. They were still hunting her. The tension in the air was palpable. Every step Hannah took felt like she was walking deeper into a trap. The voice from the alleyway still echoed in her mind. Stop or else. But Hannah wasn't the type to back down. The closer she got to the truth, the more relentless she became. There was no turning back now. She had to find out who had killed April, no matter what it took. Hannah's investigation had led her to a shocking conclusion. Will's confession had shattered any sense of security she had left, but it had also opened her eyes to a terrifying reality. The conspiracy was far bigger than she'd ever imagined. The people she had trusted most were all connected in some way to April's death. But now, with Will's warning echoing in her ears, Hannah knew she couldn't trust anyone, not even herself. As she sat alone in her apartment, piecing together all the final details, Hannah's phone rang again. The number was unfamiliar, but she answered anyway. Hannah, the voice on the other end said, I know what you've been doing. And if you think you're going to walk away from this, you're wrong. It's too late for that, the voice hung in the air, cold and threatening. Hannah's blood ran cold as she realized this was no longer just about finding the truth. Someone, somewhere, was watching her every move. Fear gripped her chest, but she pushed it down. She couldn't let herself be intimidated. She wasn't alone, she told herself. The journalist she had reached out to was supposed to be her ally, someone who could expose the truth. But was she really alone? She didn't know. She had no idea who to trust anymore. But she had no choice but to keep moving forward. The night before her meeting with the journalist, Hannah felt a sense of impending doom. The city seemed quieter than usual, like it was holding its breath. She made her way to the journalist's office, but her steps were slow, deliberate. She felt the weight of every decision she had made, every choice that had led her to this moment. It was too late to back out now, not when she was so close. She arrived at the office and went inside, the door clicking shut behind her. The journalist was waiting. He had an expression on his face that didn't match his usual professional demeanor. Something about him had changed. Hannah felt it in the pit of her stomach, the growing realization that she was walking into a trap. You wanted the truth, didn't you? The journalist said, his voice low. Well, here it is. But it's not what you think. There's more to this story than you ever imagined. The words didn't make sense at first, but then it hit her. This wasn't just about April anymore. The story had become about something much bigger. Hannah's hands trembled as she realized the full scale of the conspiracy she had stumbled upon. What do you mean? She asked, her voice trembling with disbelief. But the journalist just smiled darkly. You're not the first to come looking for answers, Hannah. There were others before you. People who got too close, and they're all gone now. And you will be too, unless you leave this alone. The words hit her like a punch to the stomach. She had been played. She wasn't the first person to dig into this mystery. She was just the latest pawn in a much larger game. But Hannah wasn't about to back down. She wasn't afraid of the journalist or anyone else who stood in her way. You can't scare me, she said, her voice shaking but determined. I've come too far. The journalist stood up suddenly, his chair scraping across the floor. That's exactly the problem, Hannah. You've come too far, and now you're in too deep. He moved quickly, too quickly, toward the door. Hannah felt a surge of panic. She had walked right into the lion's den, and she had no idea how she was going to get out of it. In that moment, the door slammed open, and a figure stepped into the room. Hannah's heart stopped. It was Will. The man who had confessed, the one who had been so eager to protect her, now stood in the doorway, a look of determination in his eyes. But it wasn't the same look she had seen before. It was something darker, more dangerous. You shouldn't have come here, Will said coldly, his voice unrecognizable. You're in way over your head, Hannah. You're not going to walk away from this. Hannah's breath caught in her throat. This was it. She had walked into a trap, and now the walls were closing in. The journalist and Will, the two people she had trusted most, were now her captors. They had been playing her all along, and now it seemed they were ready to finish what they had started. But Hannah wasn't about to give up. She had fought too hard to get here. She had uncovered too many truths. She wasn't going to let them take it all away from her. In a flash, she ran for the door. She was faster than she realized. The journalist lunged at her, but she dodged him, her heart pounding in her chest. Will grabbed her arm, but she twisted free, her legs moving faster than ever. She couldn't afford to stop now. She ran down the hallway, her mind racing. What had they meant by too deep? What had she missed? The questions gnawed at her, but she didn't have time to think about them now. She had to escape. She burst through the front door into the night air. But as she turned the corner, she felt the cold steel of a gun pressed against her back. Move, a voice ordered. Don't make a sound. Hannah's heart raced, but she didn't stop. She was at the end of the line, and she knew it. There was no way out of this. But there was one thing she could do. She slowly, carefully reached into her pocket and pulled out the phone she had been hiding all along. She had recorded everything. Every conversation, every confession, everything. And now it was time for the truth to come out. Hannah pressed send, and the recording was sent to the one person she knew she could trust, the journalist who had betrayed her. She had just turned the tables on them. And now it was time to see how deep this conspiracy really went. But just as she finished, a sharp, searing pain exploded in her side. The gunshot rang out in the night, and everything went black. The world was dark. Hannah felt her body limp, her mind clouded. She wasn't sure if she was conscious or trapped in some nightmarish dream. The cold, hard ground beneath her made it clear this was no illusion. Pain radiated from her side where the bullet had pierced her, sharp and relentless. It burned, a constant reminder that the truth, no matter how powerful, came with a price. But even as the darkness threatened to swallow her whole, something inside her refused to let go. She couldn't die here. Not like this. Not when she was so close. The sound of distant sirens slowly filtered into her awareness. Were they coming for her? Or were they just a background hum in the chaos of the city? She couldn't tell. The world around her was spinning. Time seemed to stretch, as though she was caught in a suspended moment. Her heartbeat thudded painfully in her ears, each beat a reminder of the life she still clung to.